Goodness, widen your lying place in it.
If you dig it for somebody else,
Just make sure there's space for yourself.
Just make sure there's
As
space
that
for
person
yourself.
goes in, make arrangements for yourself to follow.
it really isn't that difficult for you to be good, kind, take others into consideration. It actually probably is easier for you to be kind than it is for you to be mean or evil or nasty. Easier.
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
yes, no.
I understand what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, please.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Thank you. The issue of rights comes into discussion. The king and queen of the royal, what are they called?
Dutch Kingdom.
Thanks. The Royal Netherlands are in Kenya.
Yes.
And the King, Wilhelm, made an address yesterday and he spoke about certain things. And I want to tell you what that is. Now, it is interesting that he came and had that conversation when a number of things have been going on in the country over the last few weeks. Okay? This is what he said. King Willem Alexander of the Netherlands yesterday urged President William Ruto to ensure rights and freedoms of Kenyans are respected, challenging him to uphold human rights, good governance, and accountability. Indeed, he said more. The Dutch royal, who arrived in the country Monday evening alongside Queen Maxima, said he would give attention to discussing the issues during his 3-day state visit. The people of Kenya, like those of the Netherlands, want their rights as free citizens to be respected and their voices to be heard. King Willem Alexander said at State House, Nairobi, moments after a 21-gun salute rang out in his honor. Earlier, he and Ruto witnessed the signing of Memoranda of Understanding in Trade, Agriculture and Tourism, as well as a letter of intent on water infrastructure development. Ruto too challenged the Dutch king against abandoning his role on the global stage, which includes support for peace initiatives and other pressing issues. At the time of fraying partnerships, I urge their majesties to maintain the Netherlands' commitment to the principles of global solidarity and subsidiarity. In particular, I implored their majesties to extend support to the 8th replenishment of the United Nations Global Fund as it seeks to mobilize resources to battle difficult health challenges. So they talked about a number of things, and they said that, they would be interested in hearing the role of young Kenyans in recent developments, what opportunities they see for a bright future of the country. But it seems as though this issue of rights is something that anybody who visits the country is talking about and saying, you know what, your rights are those that must be secured by any government of the day. Why is it so important that everybody speaks on them and has been speaking on them in the manner in which they have been? Or are we looking at a situation where don't come back to my country and tell me what to do?
Well, some of these Western countries actually have a right to speak about this very subject. They have more of a right than we know. Because if we look at their history and the relationship with countries that they colonized, if it is one thing they abrogated were the rights of the people whom they colonized. And they did it for a very long time. So one could argue this is a subject they understand intimately. And then over time, when they began to understand exactly what the rest of the world, and the world began with their own citizenry, thought about this, and changes started coming about, and things like independence started coming about, for you to be acceptable,
Yes.
there was need for people to not just talk about this, but to be seen to talk about it and to put it into practice. Because when you had monarchies, and they had them in the world, what the monarchies did was what they wanted. They didn't have any consideration for anything called the human rights. Remember, up until the Second World War, Europe as we know it had been at war with each other and segments of it for close to 2 millennia. That's just how cantankerous and how they sorted out the issue. So what we see now was born over a very, very, very long period of time. Okay? Now, we can argue that we've only had 60 years of independence or thereabouts, 60 years, a little bit more above 60. But that notwithstanding, the very subject of human rights, as it is understood now globally, and the freedoms that are supposed to be enshrined in any constitution, so that it is actually spelled out in clear, bold letters, underlined in green and circled in red, so you can't miss it. It is a subject that makes you give the impression that you clearly understand human rights and you clearly want to further it. But then it takes us to the subject of migrations that we've had in Europe. We're not talking about migrations that began within their own borders. We're talking about migration from other countries. People from other countries who form minorities coming into them. Before we receive a lecture from somebody about human rights, you want to understand how do they deal with human rights when it comes to people who originally were foreigners coming into their country, and how is it then do we understand the rise of nationalism, which is a complete antithesis to this idea of tolerance of other people coming into your country. So it is good that we are reminded. It is a wonderful thing. It is good that former colonial masters have begun understanding this, and we've seen countries actually coming out and admitting they were wrong, reparations, money is being paid. We've seen the Germans do it. We've seen
the Belgians almost do it.
Yeah, they just stopped. Yes, we've seen the British sort of like not quite, but they're also there. And we've seen the Netherlands also doing their bit in fire. We've seen all this. So, thank you for the visit. But surely, there's some corners of your house that also need cleaning. We will take what you've said clearly, because we have many corners that require cleaning. But just live by the example and let us see how you clean these corners that we haven't spoken of, and corners that perhaps a little light needs to be shone on so that they can be cleaned properly.
What rights do you think they speak of? Because it would appear to me that you can come and give the advice, but it looks as, and we're looking at the royal visit right now as an example, but they're not the first. That just before the most recent one was another royal visit was the king and queen. The king of Great Britain was here months ago. You had other visits from other countries, but it seems as though this is one thread that sews in through all the conversations or all the addresses from statesmen who are outside of Kenya who come and have that conversation. So what rights do they speak of? To ensure that your children are educated, those are rights that they have. To ensure that you feed your people, those are rights that they have. To ensure that you take care of your sick, or are they crossing over those borders whereby you ensure that the rights of your people are stood on so that they don't get disappeared, that they don't get killed extrajudicially, that they don't suffer at the hands of what is the opposite of press freedom, for example, that they're able to report on matters arising without the fear of being taken away or, God forbid, killed?
I mean, I'd look at it from an aspect that Kenya is part of the global community. It's part of the global community in the sense that whatever happens here will end up outside there, and everyone will be able to see it. Like, let's go back to the June 25th, what happened in this country, and everybody across the world was talking about it, including the killings that happened in the country. So when they come, when say the Majesty comes and talks about these rights, they're touching on human rights violations that happen, because we also live in a country where we have the justice system that ought to play its role rightfully so. And this is also coming just at the backdrop of what we see as infringement to the media that is happening. And he's talking about the people have to be heard, and it is their right to be heard.
Can you go to the Netherlands today as a Kenyan leader and tell them what to do?
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Would you be listening
Whether
to?
they will listen to you is the question.
When they talk to us, are we listening? Are we listening?
Yes,
and
yes.
If we are, what is it that removes the wax from our ears and not theirs, so that when they speak, we listen clearer?
I'm just wondering why the insistence on this particular human rights issue has come to play. Or is it because that there would be incidents that would be seen to show that the abrogation of human rights is actually taking place in Kenya and on a regular basis? That are people being disappeared so much so that the world is taking notice and say, hold on a minute, you're going against the rights? Are people turning up dead where people are saying, hold on a minute, you're going against their rights? Is the situation so dire that people have to come and remind you all the time that say, hey, because what did he say? Uphold free speech and other freedoms. So does that mean that you're at a place whereby free speech is not being upheld, and that other freedoms are actually not being upheld? That somebody have the right to report on something and say it as it is without you, finying just a little bit?
I think it's coming at a time when, remember, before the king actually made his way here, over 15,000 Kenyans told him not to come. And why was that? Because Kenyans felt as though the government of the day is infringing on their rights. Therefore, the king knew here, knowing exactly what Kenyans, the concerns that Kenyans have. And we will also not forget the fact that he has his representation here through the embassies and whatnot. And these people communicate what is happening in this country back home. So he comes here with the idea or information on what our situation is. And as a lead and part of the global community, having been asked by Kenyans not to show up, he would not have not talked about that. Yeah.
It's something that had to come up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at what happens within the country. Do you think, and this is something I'm going to ask that, we look to also on our socials this morning, when we look at it, I mean, we often do the comparison, right? I mean, I come up from a different part of the continent, but then living in Kenya, and I'm going to ask the question, do you think that for the large part, that Kenyans' rights, human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of passing of information and all those things are upheld? Do you think? I'll speak from somebody coming from outside inside, and I think, yes, to a large extent. They're actually doing pretty well. Because there are countries on this continent where you will open your mouth, and even before you've opened for goodness sake, you're bordering a country where a man takes a walk and he's arrested. Literally. And I think he's still in jail. He's been moved from a military case to a civilian case now, whereby he takes a walk and he's arrested. There are countries on this continent where you will breathe the name of the president and you will not see the light of day for months on end until somebody decides to present you in a court of law for them to ask.
That is if you're alive.
If you're still alive, to be presented before court. So by and large, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, and I'm telling you that human rights to a very far extent are actually protected in Kenya and are actually seen to the point whereby, people don't have to worry too much, that you can have conversations like this and somebody's not going to nick you at the end of the day. To a large extent, they actually are protected. Now, does that mean that because that you shouldn't try to achieve or strive for, a better place?
No, not at all. Because whilst we appreciate the fact that we can have this conversation, that there's a feeling that human rights and freedom of speech is actually being supported, does not mean that there are no ills or other threats against that right. And why Kenyans are concerned, or even the international community is concerned, is because there are attempts in interfering with these rights. Because you speak today, dissent is seen, you are arrested, you are disappeared. And if the populace, if the world continues to be quiet, what we'll see is these threats will continue to be more, and that right that we enjoy today will start diminishing. So we can't afford to be quiet.
Who's the protector of these rights?
For a very long time, we'd say law enforcers, but no, the people are the protectors of this right.
Oh, the people themselves to say that, I protect my rights so that I keep speaking out? Or how do you ensure that nothing happens to you if you actually then are speaking out, or your, freedom of association according to the law? How do you ensure that you are protected under the rights? How do you do that?
I mean, the people are given the constitution power, which gives them the right to do all these things and enjoy all these rights. In an event where those who are supposed to help in protecting that law and upholding that very law fail to do that, then the people take the mantle and ensure that their rights are not curtailed. I don't know, City.
These freedoms and these rights, it has to be an ongoing discussion, and it has to be an aspirational subject, because there is no country on the planet that can say they've actually achieved it.
Yes.
Because there are times when the interest of the state is at complete loggerheads with the interest of the citizenry. And then with every country, there are always people who tend to be a little extreme. And the people who, by their very nature, are subversive. So you could argue that what is the government to do? How are they to handle these things? Now, if you look at the history of the Netherlands, the Netherlands doesn't feature as a big colonial power when we have these discussions. The French do, the British do, the Americans do,
Germans,
the Spaniards, the Portuguese. Netherlands, hardly, but they were. Now, I have to ask the question, beyond just the visit and beyond what we're saying, human rights, human right here, and so forth.
Freedom of speech.
Blah, 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 blah,
press
blah.
freedom.
One of the things that the Netherlands has actually been criticized for is the way they've handled immigrants at their borders and the ethnic profiling that has been spoken of. Remember, these are criticism, okay? And there's also been complained of the disproportionate force that they use when it comes to these individuals and the proposed policies aimed at restricting asylum applicants and services for migrants, okay? Now, is this area of migrants, but this is something that's happening in Europe.
Yeah.
Europe has acquired a thing for asylum seekers. And they forget some of these asylum seekers are people who come from countries that they were colonial masters of at some point or the other. So if it's a problem, we could argue this is a problem they brought upon themselves. Okay? But I feel and I think that whenever we talk about rights, let's extend them beyond human rights and talk about something like environmental rights. Shell Company, Royal Dutch.
Oh, okay, we're going there.
Of course, I'm going there.
Okay.
We're talking about environment. Other countries are restricting and trying to restrict and create laws that limit the use of fossil fuels. It is written and spoken of that the Dutch government gives subsidies for the use of fossil fuels. So if you talk about rights and environmental rights, there is a discussion right there. Okay? That's why I said this issue of rights, it has to be a discussion and it has to be aspirational. Because even as you try to speak about this, there are other issues that fingers could be pointed at. It could be said, but what about this? But at the same time, before this upsurge of people leaving their countries for whatever reason, the Netherlands, one didn't hear a squeak or a problem coming out of that. People went there, stayed there, and they were considered an extremely tolerant people. Just like the Scandinavian countries were. Right now it's a different story. But for the longest time. Now there are those who argued this was so because they didn't have enough people of color for them to now have a colored view of this particular situation. Now they do. And so the tolerance levels are being tested. How do they deal with people who are different from them? How do they deal with people who believe differently from them? That's why I said when you're talking about right, it's something aspiration.
You'll get there eventually.
Yes, but it's a work in progress. So perhaps we ought to discuss how is this work in progress? Let's start with the countries that the Netherlands colonized. For those who do not know. Do you know how many countries they colonized?
Well, there were not that many if you're going to give a comparison between them and Great Britain, for example.
No, Great Britain take the cup.
Great Britain and followed by France.
They went at this thing ham and tongs. They were not joking about this. Okay, so tell me, which countries do you think they colonized?
Are we talking about Africa?
No, the world over.
Brazil, some parts.
South Africa.
Yeah, that's very good. You're very good. Continue.
Namibia, some parts.
Ghana, Suriname, Dutch Guyana, Brazil.
Oh, you're reading?
Yes, it's important to read.
New Netherlands, USA. Hey, okay.
New Amsterdam.
New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sri Lanka,
Malaysia.
Taiwan, India. Then we have other countries in the Caribbean as well. Aruba, Curacao, Boinai,
Okay.
Saint Martin, Sabah, Sint. Hey, yes.
And you see, when you do that search, you realize there were very many countries that they influenced. Okay, so let's go further. How many have they paid reparations to?
Je ne sais pas.
See, I'm asking Asetra to do the homework.
Silence.
We're waiting for you.
Continue talking.
All right, let me assist you. Suriname, okay? One of the things that reparations, why I bring in the subject, it is an acknowledgement when somebody acknowledges that something was done to that country and its people, something which didn't quite meet the master even of the times. And with history, they've realized they really need to set right certain things that were definitely very, very, very wrong. Okay? And the wrong that we speak of often meant that when it came to understanding what they did and what they did to the human beings they found there, they couldn't stand clear in the cold glare of the light then, and even now when the light is even brighter because we understand human rights more, there is need not just for an apology but for you to try and make good. Okay? Now the people who had a big say in Namibia were the Germans. Okay? They have apologized.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
And even paid money. But it has been said it's not enough. But they made an attempt. 1.3 billion euros, not too bad. But then it was over, God knows, 25 years, a long period of time. But the effort was made. But significantly, they said sorry in clear terms. Clear terms. They did not he and haw and said, no. So the issue of, if we admit it fully, there'll be legal consequences. Of course, there'll be legal consequences. What do you think?
Yeah.
What am I saying? I am saying that a visit like this brings to the fore the need for discussions to be had, an honest conversation about some of these things and what it is that it means to have partnership. Because this particular visit, is said, it's to strengthen ties, okay? And to bilateral ties to improve trade, security, climate action, and youth empowerment. That's what this particular visit is touted as. So if you are to be granular and you ask, okay, let's look at trade, let's look at security, let's look at climate action. Let's look at youth empowerment. A country that is known for having reclaimed land from the sea is a country we take very seriously, because not many people have been able to do this. Okay, so what can we learn from the Dutch? Okay, and if it is bilateral, then what can they learn from us? Yeah. What is it? I'm asking the questions because for the visit to make sense, one must answer in detail these issues that it is said that they came to strengthen.
Yeah.
All right, it's 9:30, and we were just looking at that coming from a state visit of the royals from the Netherlands, and coming into asking questions around rights and making sure that those rights are actually upheld. We switch gears a little bit when we come back from this break. We'll take a look at weather and traffic. Kenya's biggest conversation continues after this.
Cheza Daka, hesabika na washindi. Ni rahisi, nenda kwenye paybill 440 account KTN, amount shilingi 20 hadi shilingi 2,000, and get your cash direct to your M-Pesa. Cheza Daka.
Medical officers, nurses, actually, we don't have enough doctors, number one, in Kenya. Okay? Number two, when you go to hospital, the majority of people who see you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, especially if you're going into the public health system. The majority of people who see you first are clinical officers. Clinical officers have already said, well, if you realize they're important, you don't sort us out, we're going to get to a place where we actually will, again, down our tools. Health workers are saying there's a strike threat, and it's not a threat. It's actually something that will become an action. As Shah warns of fake payment list, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. Let me give you that information, okay? Just when you thought it was safe to get out of the water, CT. Health workers have threatened to go on strike if their demands for better terms are not met. During a demonstration yesterday, doctors, members of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, and staff hired under the Universal Health Coverage Program called for remittance of statutory deductions and payment of salary arrears. Now, statutory deductions mean that at the point of pay, money is taken It's supposed to be put somewhere. Now they're saying they can see that those deductions have not been put in the somewhere, as well as their salary arrears have not been paid. They've also said that interns posted and the UHC staff put on permanent and pensionable terms. Do it, and do it now. In that march that has started at the Kenyatta National Hospital to the Social Health Authority offices, Afia House, and then the Senate, the health professionals warned that they would shut down the healthcare sector in May if they are not heard. And not just heard, but it must be done. According to the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, Davji Atela, we are ready to go on strike, not just for ourselves, but for interns, clinical officers, and UHC staff. This government has decided to kill both patients and doctors. So,
it's true.
Yeah, if the system is not taking care of the patients, and the system is also making sure that the doctors who are offering this care are not taken care of, what are you doing? You're killing the goose, you're killing the egg.
Yeah.
He condemned Shah's failures, stating that even basic health services remain inaccessible to many medical professionals. There is a story that we read this morning about a doctor who works in Kenya's level 6. One of Kenya's level 6 hospitals is in Kenya International Hospital. Page 7 of the Standard today. He died. Why?
300,000 shillings bill only could do 30,000.
Exactly.
Shah could only pay for 30.
Did he die?
He died.
Yes, he did. Did he die as a result of complications of his illness?
He died pretty much because he couldn't afford healthcare.
Stress became an issue for him. He is now. If the people who are offering the care are actually not even being able to be taken care of, that's a big red flag. Questions that you have to ask. SHA is only working for politicians, according to Davdi Atela. Healthcare workers cannot access it if every 9th of the month. This is unacceptable. The protesters also decried plans to slash their salaries with concerns that their pay could be reduced from 70,000 to 40,000 shillings, despite Ministry of Health budget standing at 3.7 billion. The health workers cited frustrations with contractual jobs that leave them earning far less than their county government counterparts. Okay. It does seem that there's a lot of pontification going about when it comes to SHA. And it's unfortunate. It's low-hanging fruit when you want to take a stab. That in too many areas, it's just not working. That we started to see the rumblings from the ground and it started to go up from people, whether they registered or not. Also, it's misery loves company. So you tell me, Dennis, it's not working. I can also tell you, actually, no, it's true. It's not working. Whether I've registered or not is really not your problem. But I've told you it's not working. Then we start to see the realities knock on our door in the morning. We see that this is actually the case, that it is not working for so many, very, very many people who have tried to access it. And then when you have members of your representative body being Parliament, whether it is at the Senate or whether it is at the National Assembly, then we have a problem. And the cry continues to be from people across board, partisan or not, to government, that, you know what, guys, at the very least, this system ought to work. It is one of the things you rode on to ensure that people would actually get treated and that once they delivered, they could. Why do you have 18 million people registered and only 4 million people are paying? What's going on? What's happening? Why are people not paying for the system? Is it because it's not clear how their money is actually going to work for them? When people go to hospital and actually the system says, okay, fine, you have a bill of 400,000, we can only pay 17,000. In a system where you told them that they would be able to go to hospital, present their credentials, they would be able to be sorted, taken care of, and they don't have to pay a penny to come out. What happened? Why are we still dealing with a situation whereby we were told everything was going to be okay, and here we are, and it's still not okay? The practitioners around the system are telling you, we can't do this anymore. We'll go on strike. The thing will be crippled. In a month, we could be staring down a situation whereby you're going to go to hospital. It can't happen. Private hospitals say you owe them money. They're not going to offer you services. Faith-based are about to join the fray. My goodness, it's a tailspin and I'm dizzy.
You see, when you talk about even let's talk about 18 million registered and the 4 million. What is, if the 4 million that are paying because they are they're earning a salary which is deducted monthly on a monthly basis. When you talk about the deficit that is 14 million people who are registered, how is the government ensuring that they are deducted as registered members of SHA? That is not clear cut on how the government is getting the monies from them. And as we talk about this system that is here, it is here whether we like it or not. Kenyans are seeking medication using this system. And the government has no option but to make sure that SHA is working and is working for everybody. Like you say, whether I'm registered or not, if I hear it's not working for Ndu, I will carry that gospel forward.
Of course. Yes.
You know, because it is someone I know that it has not worked for them. But what is the government doing in fixing all these issues associated with SHA? Because you see, doctors are saying one of our own died because SHA did not come through for them. Many other Kenyans are singing the same language. The only people who are saying SHA is working are the people who do not even use SHA, because we know members of parliament have 10 million shillings private insurance.
Do you think that the burden on government is too heavy, CT? And let me before you take that breath properly, maybe it is a lot. Maybe there's not enough money. I mean, Director of Medical Services, Dr. Amoth, has said, you know what, we need to make sure that people are paying, because if they don't pay, we're not able to pay. We can't pay. If people don't pay, at their tier 2, remember tier 2 is when you go in and that money that you pay is actually your money. If they don't have enough money, then it is not possible. We can sing songs and craft tales and do whatever we want, and we can pontificate from here until dusk. But truly, if there's no money to do the thing, it's not going to happen. If there's no money to pay health workers, it's not possible. By the time somebody is saying we're going to slash your salary from 70 to 40, is because there's no money. Leave alone that there could be money for other things, okay? Yeah. But what we are saying is that in this case, where they need money to pay medical doctors, they need money to pay clinical officers, they need money to pay nurses, they need money to pay interns. If there's no money, it's also
What we do
Fine, Nini?
in such a situation is, first of all, let's start with what was the Ministry of Health allocation for the financial year?
3.6 billion.
No, it was more.
Okay, let's go with 3.6 billion.
Can the Ministry of Health give us an account of how that 3.6 billion was actually utilized to meet the needs they have? I ask this question because before you convince us that the money was insufficient, it's the same question we've asked of counties. You say this money is not enough. Okay. Tell us the shortfalls, but also tell us how it is you use the money that you are given.
So, based off information I'm seeing here, the health sector was allocated 134.437 billion in the 2023-2024 financial year.
Yes. Yes.
134 billion.
134.4,
Yes.
yeah.
Whoa,
Yes.
low.
Yes. So, just simple. Do the maths. Break it down. You know what you spend money on, isn't it? You know the budget line, don't you? You know the items for the ministry. Just show us that 134 billion. This is how we used it, and this is where the shortfall is.
Yes.
Now, so long as you can't document and show us, don't talk to us about the shortfall. Don't say there isn't enough money. That is a tired, trite story. It is banal. It is something that, yes.
No, carry on, please. Keep going.
Please carry on, yeah. Drop them.
You cannot speak of one without explaining and documenting and detailing the other. Okay? Now, this conversation about there not being enough money,
Not enough. None.
take it somewhere else. Take it somewhere else. If you're going to talk about money that was allocated and budgeted for but didn't arrive, talk about that one. And also tell us how it is you utilize that one. If you then say you prioritize certain things, explain why you prioritize those things and didn't prioritize the human resource who are supposed to make these things possible. And I'm talking about cross-board. Are there people within the Ministry of Health that got paid? Yes. Are the interns under the Ministry of Health? They are, yes. The service they provide and supposed to provide, is it crucial? Yes. So, when you talk priorities and crucial, put those two together. How then should the money have been allocated? This is a tired story. Tired. We are chasing a tail that doesn't even exist. We're talking about a black cat in a black room. The black cat doesn't even exist. Where do you take the money that is allocated and what do you do with it? Forget these long stories. When you have that budget, we are talking about public or the public health component, the primary health component of SHA. We're talking about the critical and emergency care that is supposed to be the third, where the government is supposed to bring the funding. Explain to us, when this budget was given to you, since you're the Ministry of Health, how much of this money went into these two sections? I mean, these questions keep coming up and they must be responded to. When they're responded to and it equals, we cannot pay interns, we'll understand. If they're responded to and it answers, we cannot honor the CBA, we will understand. But so long as that maths doesn't math, okay?
Well done.
Then take that discussion somewhere else, okay?
Yet here we are sitting. It is what the government is saying. They
No,
do not
it
have-
is. The information of the government is piecemeal. You tell me a statement that you could consider comprehensive that was issued regarding this
Yes.
matter. Tell me
Yes.
which one. A substantive office holder coming and saying, this is this, this is this, this is this.
No,
is
unfortunately, we haven't. And what we've gotten in terms of a response to this is the threat that perhaps we can shut down, licenses for private hospitals. That's the answer. Kind of like what we see with the math problem that we talked about earlier in the morning, is that if there is a problem, we want to solve a problem by covering, there's a crack in the window or the little part of the window that's chipped. And rather than removing it and replacing it with the new glass,
putting a
we
cardboard.
take a cardboard and cover it.
Yes. So it's like the window doesn't exist.
Yeah, so if I don't have to see it, then the problem doesn't exist. So now, if I can revoke your license as a private hospital, then I don't have to deal with the fact that I owe you 30 billion shillings. And I don't have to deal with the fact that this thing is rotten at the core and perhaps we should dig out the the rot and deal with it. So I cover it up with the cardboard and I move. So if I don't have to deal with, okay, so fine, math has been a pain point for students in school, instead of sorting out our teaching methods, instead of insisting that the trickle-down effect is actually, it's streamlined and that it's working properly, and then I'll say, okay, fine, you don't have to do it. You see, that's how we're starting to deal with issues. And then we say, okay, you know what, at the county level, if health workers go on strike, what are we going to do? We're going to sack you. Okay? And we're going to bring other people in. There are many people who want jobs in this country. If you think that you're going to insist on us to pay you with money that we don't have, we're going to get rid of you. Okay? That's going to solve the problem. Then we're going to bring others in into an already source system, and then we're going to think we can solve it that way.
In this same ministry, are you telling me that the travel budget has been cut? Are you telling me that people who work in that ministry don't travel? Are you telling me people in other ministries don't travel? We heard of austerity measures.
Yeah.
One hears it. What does austerity measures mean? It means the business that we had as usual can't be, unless it's critical. Now, COVID taught us you didn't even need to travel. You can actually meet those people online and chat and conclude, and then take the two people who need to sign to that country to sign, or ask those guys to come over so that we can sign. The options are plenty. The story of austerity is precisely that. There are areas where you see austerity, there are areas that you don't. If I saw government services grinding to a halt in all sectors, and others, essential or non-essential, grinding to a halt, then I would say, this money problem is real. That is not the case. We still have the Director General pointing to us glaring and obscene amounts of money being spent
on travels.
Yes, and by the same government officials.
The same
Come
people.
On, help us understand this austerity.
You see,
Is what
But
exactly?
what is our problem?
You see,
No, honestly, no. No, sorry. What is wrong with us? Because is there something wrong? Because I saw a comment by somebody earlier, and I think it was my take, who said, honestly, what happened to us after, is it after independence or even before? And it's not just Kenya, by the way. What's wrong with us? What's
It is
wrong
true.
with us?
African countries have this problem.
Yes.
Some are worse than the others. And then you know what we do? The bar is now set on comparing ourselves with the West.
Yes.
How can that be a bar?
Honestly speaking,
That's a pit. It's not a bar.
I think about the country, my country, Nigeria. I think about the country and I think about those that surround us and say, what really is wrong with us? That what is available, you think that the best thing that you want to do with it is take it and put it in your pocket. That you think that the best thing that you can do when you look at a dilapidated economy and you look at people who are suffering to stand up in the morning and make it from point A to point B, to suffer to take their children to school, to get on public transport and get home, to suffer to have a meal a day. And you think that the best way to deal with it is to steal the money and to prioritize that money for something else. No, there's something wrong with us, honestly. And I think that's what we need to be dealing with.
Yeah.
And I go back to that. What value do we place on human life? What value do we place? Because if our value index was at optimum, you see all these things that we complain about, that people say we are making too much noise. This thing we talk about education, shouting like mad people. This thing we talk about health, shouting again like even madder people. You talk about a road that has not been made for 20 years. If our value system for doing the right thing, if our value system for putting people top in terms of priority, if our value system for the job that you've been given to do, you do it right. If our value system, the points were up here, in fact, we would not be having anything to talk about.
You see, when you talk about our value system, let me just paint a picture. I was with Dr. Samuel Mwenda over the weekend, and let me just paint a picture of what it is we're dealing with when it comes to matters SHA. If you go to Tenwick Hospital today, they conduct around 3 to 4 open heart surgeries weekly, because that is their specialty. So that means if you do not have money, that patient who does not have, SHA is not working for their benefit, they will not be able to get the surgeries done. And if they down tools today, or they ask you to bring the money, that means around 6 people will not be able to get the services. Now let's go to Kijabe. Kijabe is well known for all the surgeries they do. They have 15 well-equipped theaters that attend to Kenyans every single day. We're talking about individuals who are seeking critical care in this country who cannot be able to access these services because the government has decided not to pay these faith-based institutions for reasons well known to them. We're talking about people who have conditions that are life-threatening. What value are we placing on human life? And the Daktari said, it is simple. If the government does not pay, You as Ndu, if you come with your heart condition, you need a surgery, I will tell you, the government has not paid me. Please give me $1 million bob to be able to operate on you.
But even it goes beyond payment, because usually this thing works, it's credit that the hospitals give the government. So they've provided services and they haven't been paid, and they can't see why they should continue going to the hole.
Yeah.
But this one we've discussed. I want us to touch on press freedom for the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
Go.
Because it's important. Let me just read it.
Yes.
Press freedom refers to the rights of individuals and organizations to express, publish, and share information, ideas, and opinions without fear of censorship or government interference. I'm just going to repeat this so that you understand it.
Okay.
Press freedom refers to the right of individuals and organizations to express, publish, and share information, ideas, and opinions